ZOOMCAST. Now live. Log in and check it out. Matt Grima.
We are on live. Welcome everybody to episode 15 of this humble little Zoomcast that commenced right throughout lockdown. I'm Matt Grima. Welcome to Zoomcast, and today's special guest, one of the funnier guys in real estate, a director at Marshall White's Albert Park office, some 28 years of industry experience. I speak, of course, of the very well-liked and very well-known Damian O'Sullivan. G'day, Dos.
Hello, Mr. Grima. How are you?
I'm very well. Geez, you look very relaxed. I'm enjoying some of the background settings of our guests on Zoomcast. Where exactly are you?
No, it's a green screen. I'm actually in the office still working, would you believe? No, you wouldn't. I'm sitting back at home outside. Child-free zone for the time being.
Child-free zone that aren't chewing up the Wi-Fi so that we can try and get through this unscathed.
Don't speak too soon.
Got it, mate. Thanks for jumping on. I've wanted you and I to do this a couple of times. We had a couple of false starts. You are, of course, husband, father of four, director at Marshall White. So you're a pretty busy man, but gee whiz, I'm happy to have had the opportunity to pin you down and have a bit of fun, talk through your career, some of the lighter moments in real estate, and how life was for you and the family during COVID, and how we've come out of it.
I think I've been begging you for about 12 months to be a part of this, Matty, but you had a few up-and-comers like Marcus Chiminello that took precedence over me.
When the big man's available, you grab him. There's no doubt about that.
I'm being facetious, of course, perhaps not for the last time during this little chat.
Very good. Dos, 28 years in the game. It's an extraordinary run that you've had. Certainly people within the Marshall White community, and Marshall White ranks know of you. You work, essentially work across a couple of marketplaces, don't you? You've still got great ties to the Boroondara market, and naturally you work day to day down at Albert Park in the city of Port Phillip. So you are rare in the sense that you do move across a couple of markets, and I would say you're more a contacts-based, relationships-based agent than sort of pinning yourself, at a cafe in a suburb day to day. For those who may not know much about you in terms of your journey through the ranks, maybe give some of the listeners a bit of a snapshot as to where it all began for you and your journey to get to where you are today.
It's been a long journey, 28 years. That makes me feel about 48 years of age, funnily enough. I started in 93 down in Port Phillip after a short but unsuccessful stint at university, where they fell out of love with me pretty quickly. So I started in real estate. I started working probably with a franchise company, but at the head office of franchising. So I got to see a lot of the businesses right throughout Victoria, as well as doing sales on Saturdays and Sundays. I apologise to the property managers that might be listening. I spent about 6 short weeks in property management back in the early days doing rent arrears in St Kilda, which was a very, very different looking environment way back then. In fact, every phone call ended in an expletive, not out of my mouth. So it wasn't a great deal of fun. And after, as I said, 6 short weeks, I thought there's got to be something else to real estate, and I've been in a sales role or environment ever since. I've spent about 10 years working in the Stonington market as well. I've lived in Boroondara all my life, and I've been a part of the Marshall White family now, along with my two partners, Kane Lanyon and Oliver Bruce, for just a tick over 10 years.
Yeah. Well, in fact, that just got celebrated at the fire up that we were at the other day. I remember they made mention of it. 10 years. That's incredible. We'll touch on your relationship with the great Lanyon and Ollie Bruce in a moment. So as a kid at school, I can tell you from experience that the report card would come back and it would often say, Matt's a good trier, he's got some enthusiasm, but by God, can he speak and, doesn't shut up and that sort of stuff. I'd imagine, and I'm guessing, that given your quick wit, that sort of stuff might have come up with you as a youth.
Typically, my report card read, Damian is easily distracted and distracts others readily.
Yeah.
And nothing much has changed a few decades later, I'm pleased to say.
One of
You got to have a
my
bit of fun along. You got to have a bit of fun along the way.
100%. One of the best, one of my favourite stints in my career, and I've been in it for about 10 or 11 years, was I got the opportunity to sit in your office, and we worked side by side for two and a bit years, I reckon. And it was like a pinball machine in terms of the wit and the jokes and the comedy and the stories and the setup work that you and I would do to set somebody up. It was a lot of fun. So, and you bring that through right through the office there at Albert Park. So
very productive fun. 2.5 years, Matthew, wasn't it?
What's that? Sorry?
It was a very productive few years for you and I, wasn't it?
No, absolutely dominated, Dos. No, not at all. Not at all. Tell me, so through that journey, obviously being a standalone sales agent for the vast majority of that, and then looking to set up the Marshall White business in Port Phillip with Kane and Ollie, maybe share that story and that experience. How did you actually go from working where you were? Perhaps you can touch on that, to actually setting up a Marshall White's business in an area that it didn't yet exist.
Yeah, look, we had worked together, the three of us, since about 2004.
Yep.
Then come 2009, 2010, we wanted to explore, take the next step, align ourselves with a business that we thought was progressive, market leaders, set the benchmark, a company that shared the same beliefs and values as us, a big family. After a few short months of courting each other, we started Marshall White Port Phillip in December 2010, and we haven't looked back. It's been, one of the best decisions we've ever made. The Marshall White family's grown, but they've been true to their word since the day we started. We originally spoke with, obviously, John Bongiorno and James Connell, and the journey's been, nothing short of amazing for us. And 10 very, very short years later, here we are.
Yeah. At the time, Dos, what was the perception or the understanding of Marshall White in the marketplace? They're obviously very prevalent in the Stonington and Boroondara parts of the world, but how did the market or people that lived in say, a Port Phillip take to Marshall White coming into the area?
They took to us very well. Very, very few people hadn't heard of Marshall White.
Yep.
A lot were well aware that Marshall White had great presence in Stonington and Boroondara, but not in Port Phillip. We sold ourselves as being not new to the marketplace, just new to Marshall White. We surrounded ourselves with good people, great processes. The support we had from day one was extraordinary. And I know the three of us would say, hand on heart, we couldn't have done what we've achieved in those 10 short years had we not had the support of the team and the likes of the many great people that work for Marshall White. And we're really humbled to learn that we took market share in about 18 short months after starting the business.
And outside of the three pillars, yourself, Kane, Lanyon, and Ollie Bruce, how did you go about building the broader team to get the Hollards and the Who's and the Sarah Woods on board? Maybe talk through that process, and then Ben Manolitzis, Georgia Whitford, Brad Steinbach, the list goes on in terms of great performance at the office. Scott O'Halloran, of course, as well. But talk me through building from you three into the powerhouse that it is now.
Well, we were strongly encouraged from day one to build the team and build it strongly and aggressively with the right people. I'm really fortunate in that my two business partners, both Kane and Ollie, are, I believe, attraction agents. In that they're good human beings. They're amazing estate agents. They're all around nice people who just, were very, very friendly with the competition, dare I say it.
Yep.
And I also think Marshall White was an attraction brand. The very reason that attracted the three of us to the business in the first place. So we were three people that tried to do business differently in a market that had been dominated by a few other agencies for a few decades. And by different, I mean we were genuine, we're open, we're transparent, we weren't robotic. It was all about the customer first and foremost.
Yep. Well said. And then, Dos, your journey intrigues me for a couple of reasons. As I said, talked about the standalone agent, which you still are to this day. And I know that you've got a lot of people that when they think real estate, they think, geez, I better better speak to Dos about his opinion on the market, or where he thinks My Home sits in the market at the moment. You're very good, and you're very big on ensuring that you get the right team in, depending on the type of real estate that you're actually walking into. So if it's a big thumper in Albert Park or Middle Park, then you go into a Kane Landon or an Oliver Bruce pretty quickly. If you're doing some work with your Burundara clients, then Dwayne Wallowik, Stuart Evans, the list goes on in terms of getting in the right team. How important do you think getting the right team in is from the get-go to ensuring that you position yourself to make your friends, your family, your clients feel comfortable about dealing with you?
Getting the right team is one of the most important things. It's not so important to ensure that we're entrusted with the business. It's most important, for example, as you know, I called you earlier today about a particular property in Western Kilda because I felt that you were the most appropriate person to assist me in selling for a long-term client, in that that marketplace and those buyers far better than anyone else. So ultimately, I think that's making the right decision for the vendor, and that's what it's got to come down to. It's not about taking the business on myself and taking a fingers crossed approach. It's about ultimately, first and foremost, doing what's right for the vendor. That's where it starts and stops for me.
Yep. Well said. Dos, you are, and people, again, Marshall White people, other agents would know you're one of the very best auctioneers in the state. I don't say it just because you're sitting here.
No, I told you to say that earlier, that's why.
You are very good. You're very funny. You're very quick-witted. You're great. You've got a little growl in the voice, which I know a couple of our agents have noticed. You do get growly when the numbers get going, and you do happen to swivel a little bit when you walk around sort of end to end.
Okay.
There's a genuine strut going on, not quite of the Pilios capability, but there is some strutting. One day during an auction, as a result of the strut, am I right in suggesting that you might have accidentally sprained the old ankle?
Well, accidentally would be fair to say. I didn't do it on purpose.
Yeah.
I didn't know I had a swivel, but that may well account for why I did. It was many moons ago, Matthew, in Bruce Street in Toorak.
Yeah.
And it was literally mid-auction that I sprained the ankle. And for those of you that have sprained an ankle, you know that searing pain. But of course, it was that very pain that I couldn't let on to the crowd that I was in any pain. In fact, the most painful part thereof was not the physical pain, but the pain of seeing my colleagues across the road with tears streaming down their cheeks, laughing at my expense. That was the most humiliating and painful part of the whole experience, and one that I'll never forget.
So you do the ankle mid-auction. You're good enough to put on a brave face and work your way through it. Did the property sell under the hammer?
Sold under the hammer, thankfully.
Okay.
Yes, probably because the auctioneer was very keen to get it sold and go and ice his ankle for no other reason.
So you knock it down, you go inside and do the paperwork at the time. And what did the ankle look like at the end of it all?
I put on a brave face. We exchanged contracts. I limped back to the car and potentially cried for the next 28 minutes. I'm not sure. I can't. As I said, it was many years ago, thankfully. And touch wood, I haven't done it since.
Yeah, well done. Mate, what makes, you would have caught thousands of auctions. You're a great charity auctioneer as well. I know you've done a lot of charity auctions over the journey, and that's probably your style because you can go a little bit off centre and have a little bit more fun and, loosen up a crowd that's probably drinking and throwing away some money with charity often, or whatever the case may be. Whether a charity auctioneer or whether an auctioneer as an estate agent, with your experience, what are some of the key points that you would want to hit on if somebody was wanting to become a very good auctioneer? What would they need in their kit bag?
I think first and foremost, the ability to feel comfortable in that environment. I think a lot of people do it because they're told to do it, because they feel that they'll be a better listing agent as a result thereof. But you need to be comfortable in that environment. That will come across. You need to enjoy the moment. There's no point putting yourself through all that pain if you're not actually enjoying it. And if you're not enjoying it, you're potentially not representing the vendor and the property in the best light. I think for me, after I did my first auction back in late 93 or thereabouts, I thought I knew it all. 2 short years later, I thought, wow, who was I kidding? The experience that I've gained in 2 short years has made an enormous difference to the overall result, and the ability to make the right judgment call on a second's notice, at the right point in time, to do the right thing by the vendor, whether it be to, to drop the increments, to stand your ground, whatever it may be. You've been an auctioneer for a number of years yourself, but I think the nothing short of years gained experience will give you, the ability to make the right judgment at the right time.
Yeah. Yeah. And how much work did you put into your auctioneering, particularly in the early days? Was it something that were you in front of the mirror? Were you reciting numbers in the shower? Were you practicing quite regularly, or are you a guy that you can sort of turn it on when you need to?
Probably a bit of that, and that's what made me feel very comfortable by standing front and center in the first place.
Yep.
That I like to ad lib, but back in the day, unlike nowadays where we put our agents through 6 months of rigorous training before they stand out the front of a house on the street, I literally had, and I'm not sure I've exchanged this story with you before, but I had about 3 days notice by my boss at the time on a Wednesday who said, this coming Saturday, you're calling your first auction. Now, I'd been to enough auctions, i.e. 20 or 30 auctions in my vast 9-month experience at the time.
Yes.
So I was put on the spot, and I've loved every auction I've done. Each and every one of them is a little bit different. They're all a little bit challenging. The crowd, the environment, the emotion, the anxiety, the sense of urgency, the fear of loss, all those things make it so much fun, even, 27, 28 years later.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said, mate. I got a similar story. So I was, I worked in the West for 5 years, as you know, before I came over to Marshall White, predominantly private sale market. So auctions just weren't spoken of or heard of. The only auction that you would see would be a mortgagee in possession. And I thought, geez, there's a little bit of steam in the market. This is going back a number of years. And I thought, I wonder whether I could be the guy to bring some auctions to this part of the world, right? You think you can change the game, so to speak. So I listed a property, and it was a unique piece of real estate. And I genuinely, in my heart of hearts, thought that an auction might actually get them the best outcome because it might evoke some emotion. So I said to my boss at the time, I said, mate, I've booked an auction in. Can you help me out? And 3 days before the auction happened, we were standing in a vacant house at another one of our listings, and he was like, all right, have a go. And I said, wow. So you sort of get thrown in the deep end, but sometimes that is the best way to learn. And if you've got a little bit of wit about you, you can maybe fumble your way through it. So,
well, short of spraining ankle, the second most embarrassing moment I had, you just made me think, was my boss at the time. Before I did that first auction, on the Friday, he made me stand out the front of the property. I think it might have been 382 Toorak Road, South Yarra. Don't quote me on the number, but Toorak Road, South Yarra, middle afternoon on a Friday, and I called an auction to just him.
Yep.
And again, probably second to spraining my ankle, one of the more embarrassing moments I've had, but put me in reasonably good stead the next day.
I know the Marshall White auction coach, Phil DeFagley, who's done it for a long time, will often get you to go to Domain Park and stand in the middle with kids and families and human beings around and just belt out an auction, and people turn and look and what the hell is this guy doing? But it does get you over those nerves and help you project your voice and get your setting right. So it does help.
The old saying, get comfortable being very, very uncomfortable. And I think you've just got to put yourself out there, and at the end of the day, recognise it's not about you. It's about representing the vendor and the property.
Dos, one thing that was about you, and this is a good segue, by the way, you've been on Media Street this week during, certainly through Marshall White circles. I happened to log on to my Instagram account the other day, and I did see Agents and Their Spaces with the very own Damian O'Sullivan. You were looking quite regal in some of the photos.
Regal.
Very, very impressive. How did you get conned into Agents and Their Spaces, and what is all that about?
Much like you speaking to me about doing this for many months, I think it was about 12 months ago that I got approached to do it.
Yeah.
And speaking of being comfortable or getting comfortable being uncomfortable, this is one of those environments, as well as Agents and Their Spaces. But more recently, Maddie, and for the many thousand listeners that you have probably tuning in as we speak, many would probably not know that I spent 10 plus years working on the business and not so much in the business. In more recent times, perhaps kicking and screaming at the time, I'm now working in the business and on the tools again.
Yep.
24/7, which has been a real eye opener for me at my age to get back in doing that. And this is just a part of that. At the end of the day, we do need to promote ourselves in some shape or form and let the people that I know in my life and family and friends and all those acquaintances know that this is what I'm doing once again. So that was all part of it. And you conned was a good word because it's very apt.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you did well. I read every word of the article, and I've actually not a word, but I did enjoy the photography part of it.
I'm glad you did, because it was one of the more uncomfortable moments in my life. But
did any messages fly through the DMs, Dos? Did anybody get in touch?
What's a DM?
Yeah.
No, I'm joking. I know
thank you.
It's a message of some variety.
Yeah.
No, well, I did have my son. Thank you. Oh, that's good. I did have my son standing behind the camera at the time, sort of doing the loser, sort of. No, I didn't get a whole lot by way of messages, apart from a few close mates who do what close mates do, and they ribbed me accordingly, and they will continue to do so, and perhaps even tonight after this is shared far and wide.
Just about to say, I'm sure some more ribbing's going to come your way, but it's all for a good cause. I got a couple of points, and there is a Q&A with Dos, which I put out on Instagram, and boy, oh boy, did my DMs blow up with a couple of people very interested to learn a little bit more about our guest here this evening. Before I touch on that, though, Dos, quite seriously, and we're sort of happy to be coming out of it, albeit, we're back wearing masks and 30 people down to 15 and hand sanitizer at every open and all that sort of stuff. But the middle of COVID, during that lockdown period in our typical spring selling season, was a tough time for a lot of people, and I use the word tough, in context, of course. Caroline's husband, you're a father of 4 kids. What was life like for the O'Sullivans? I know Caroline's got a catering business that sort of is still going, but, there was some additions to that as well. Talk me through COVID life in your world.
Yeah, well, it's a really valid point. It was such a tough time for so many people. And people had different experiences. Mine, as I said, my wife Caroline runs a local catering business, which has been around for 12 plus years. That was incredibly busy, and then it shut down just like that, like so many other businesses and industries. Coincidentally, at the time, her family are from regional Victoria, dotted around regional Victoria, but Caroline and her sister started a women's lifestyle clothing business in Yarrawonga. Also an online business, but a company called Kitty & Co, a business. And so we spent 8 to 10 weeks up there in a very relaxed stage 3 lockdown in Yarrawonga.
Yep.
Which, compared to what folk were going through down here, was a blessing in disguise, aside from the fact that I did a lot of the homeschooling of my 4, along with 3 of my nephews. And I was also the sous chef at times. It was a challenging time. It was a new environment for me. I'd never lived in the country.
Any of those kids repeating their year level as a result of you leading the charge education-wise?
Absolutely not. I take offence to that. However, you should hear their language. It's really gone to a different level. No, they're back at school now, so they've been told to drop any of that sort of obscene language they may have encountered from time to time. Yep. So look, we were really fortunate, and as you know, I came back to Melbourne on and around the start of October, and boy, we haven't taken a breath since.
Yeah. It's busy at the moment, isn't it? There's plenty on. I was in a Tostovan training session yesterday, James Tostovan, episode 14, mind you, Dos.
Just before me.
He was, I reckon his topic of the day was time management. He's talking about trying to put together as many appointments in your diary at any one time to avoid going, coming, and just try and clump them all together so that you can save a bit of time. And that's important at the moment because all estate agents, not just Marshall White, are quite busy out in the marketplace at the moment.
Yeah, well, I think when it comes to time management, you probably can't speak to anyone better in the business. I've never seen a busier individual. The intensity with which he works even today, 30-something years in the business, you only have to, speak to him on the phone to know that he is one busy and highly driven individual. As I said, 30 plus years in the business, which makes him the pretty special agent he's been for so long.
Hold on, Dos. I wanted to ask because obviously we were talking about the difference between being a standalone agent and then actually managing a team or running an office. And a lot of the times, top performers, so let's say $1 million fee writer in a suburb that they've been working in for quite a long time, decides to then go and run their own office or start a new business or run their own team. I wanted to know from you, given that you've done both, as to whether you think there's a difference in skill set needed between being a really top performing estate agent and being a really good leader and manager of people, teams, emotion, etc. Do you think the two skill sets are aligned, or do you think that there's a fair difference between those roles?
I think there's a huge difference. I don't think that everybody can do both. I'm one that can't do both. I've never been the $1 million writer, but I have had a natural leaning towards running a team, leading a team. I've always found it a little humorous that the great estate agent, the $1 million writer, at some point in time thinks, not everybody, but thinks, let's go out and I'm going to run my own business. A $1 million writer isn't necessarily the best person who's equipped to run a business or lead a team. Some are. Some can do both brilliantly. I think that's a little bit of a rarity. I think some people, I look at some of the great agents in our business who know in their own mind that they need to stay in their lane. And that lane is listing and selling real estate. And there's very few, I think, can do both and do both successfully at the same time. It's very, very difficult, as you know, to be a part-time salesperson. You really need to be invested 24/7 to be a good listing and selling agent. Then there's those that, perhaps like me, that had just a genuine desire and attraction to run a business, to lead a team, to grow a team, to support a team. And that means stepping away from the 24/7 grind that is, prospecting, listing and selling. I've now, for the betterment of the business, we're at a point in time, as I said, 10 years old, where I've got back on the tools, and I'm loving it. But there's still that part of me that can't keep away from wanting to be, with the team and support the team and help the team.
Yeah. No, well said. And you still do that. I know there's a lot of people that still come to you for guidance and advice, and whether it's auction training or whether it's a scripts and dialogue session or something like that. And I know for a fact, mate, you've helped me out tremendously over the journey. All right. Now, the question and answer segment, Dos. This is a Zoomcast first, but there wasn't a better guest to do this with, in my opinion, than you, because a lot of people, and I'm just pulling out the messages here that flooded my DMs last night about this.
You did say you were going to send them to me first, but I haven't had a chance to peruse these. So let's go. Let's see how we fare.
I wasn't going to send them to you, Dos. I am trying to set you up here.
Yeah, I know that.
Now, some of them I'll put names to and some of them I won't, because there's a few cheeky messages that have come through here.
I bet there are.
Jack Nickel, one of the greats who's just joined Team Kiminello and is looking very sharp around the Armadale office, just simply wrote, "He is the king." So that's a nice start. Not sure about that, but that's what Jack thinks. James Hill, former
I've always
Marshall
liked
White.
him.
What's that, sorry?
Always liked Jack Nickel. Always had a lot of time for him.
Well, I don't know if you're going to like Jimmy Hill. He said that, is he part of the royal family? He's giving off Prince Andrew vibes here in your photo agents and their spaces. Have you got a retort for Jimmy?
Sorry, who's this James Hill you talk of?
That would be him.
Oh, right. A regal royal set. Well, look, I guess the day I walk the halls in loafers without socks and a pair of pants that are 4 to 5 inches short of the ankle like Jimmy does, then perhaps I've got a long way to go. Now, I've learned from the best. I'm trying to I've got the Gant polo on here, and I'm just trying to learn from the best. I don't know whether I'll ever quite catch up to his swagger, but we can only dream, can't we?
You are very, very well groomed and well dressed, Dos, that's for sure. Former Marshall White admin sensation Chloe Summerfield wrote in and said, do you have an admin staff member that you miss the most? Might be fishing for some commentary, Dos.
Well, there are lots, but of course, Chloe, or as we officially we refer to her as, of course, Matthew, her nickname. Let's just run with Chloe.
Chloe Bags. That's
Chloe Bags.
Yep.
She's up there amongst many, but fond memories of Chloe. She was one of the best.
Very good. Very good. A couple of serious questions, Dos, came through. What do you put your longevity of success down to? And second part of that question, what are some of your favourite things about working in an area like Albert Park? And they were written in by episode 3 of ZOOMCAST, Mandy Stanley.
Any other questions from Andy, or is that it?
That's the only ones that I can see here, Dos. Yes.
Got you.
What
longevity.
Longevity of success down to, and what are the things you love about Albert Park or working in an area like Albert Park?
Longevity, I think you simply need to enjoy what you do. You can't be this invested in an industry or a business or a career without thoroughly enjoying it. Yes, it has its trials and tribulations from time to time, its ups and downs. It is a roller coaster ride. But at the end of the day, we are very, very fortunate, representing the people we do, the properties that we do in the areas that we do. We're incredibly fortunate when representing the brand that we do in Marshall White, I might add. So I think enjoyment. Every different property has its different, characteristics, its different set of challenges. The end goal remains the same, to get the best possible price for the vendor. In as far as Albert Park, as I said, I started working in St Kilda, and back in '93, St Kilda looks very different today to what it did back then. And going from there to working in parts of Stonnington, Burundara, I've lived in Kew all my life, Albert Park, and in, again, some of these suburbs in which we operate. Great property, great real estate, lovely families, good people, so it's just, it makes it all worthwhile in the end when you do deal with good people who trust you with their business and trust your advice implicitly. Yeah.
Well said. There were many other questions that came through, Dos, but none of them quite appropriate for ZOOMCAST.
Really?
So a couple of cheeky ones from Tom Hain messaged in, and a few others got in there as well. Mate, it's been a joy and a pleasure to have you on, quite sincerely. As I said, I've wanted to have you on for a little while. You're a very funny man. You often have a line of people that want to get a word in with you at one of the Marshall White events or at an auction. You are one of the greats, and you continue to do really good things in the marketplace. As I said, across a few marketplaces that you work in with Marshall White. So if anybody hasn't come across the Dos, by all means do so. Where can people reach you, Dos, if they want to pick your brain about your journey, be it for a coffee or a catch-up?
Well, they can DM me, Matty, whatever that means, or simply email dos@marshallwhite.com.au. I'm sure they can indeed reach out to you, and you'll point them in the right direction.
So just to clarify, your email address is dos@marshallwhite, like Cher or Elvis, right?
Or like the artist formerly known as Prince, something like that. Yeah.
No, that's a fair bit of swag to end on. Mate, thanks for being a part of ZOOMCAST. Appreciate it. On iTunes, on Spotify, listen to it on the morning walk for a coffee. And there's plenty of other episodes that you can find on ZOOMCAST's own Instagram page. Dos, I think we're done. Thanks, mate.
Thank you, Matty. Thank you, mate.
Cheers.